Oh, hello there. Shooting interiors for my wife today, her side hustle, Nestled Home. You should go follow her. She's a BA businesswoman. This is the part where you can jump into the video if you want. This is the part where you can jump in the video. Stop. This is my wife, Sabria. We are going to be photographing our condo today. It's not completely done, but it's pretty close, and we want to get some content for her IG page, yeah? And her website and all that good stuff. So I'm gonna give you a few tips and tricks on how I shoot interiors with a DSLR. Check it out. Tip number one, I recommend that you shoot this stuff with a tripod. It's gonna make sure that you get everything locked in exactly how you want it every time. And when you make little small changes here and there, it can just be locked into the same exact frame in between shots. So you need a tripod that's going to be able to work vertically and horizontally. This isn't necessarily the best tripod. Usually something with a fluid head might be better for you to move around. But this does the job for me. I also have a 24mm lens, something really wide to be able to capture everything in the room. Even something like, I forget what it is, 16 or 18 to 35, that wide angle zoom lens could be really good too. What I like about this lens is that I can stop up really wide if I need to at 1.4, even though usually most of the time I'm shooting at higher apertures. So, tripod, totally clutch. Tip number two is shooting from a low angle. You gotta shoot at the hip level. It's important to shoot from a lower level because it makes the room bigger, more grandiose, gives more context to the room, and it helps with the lines in your photo, which is point number three. Shooting intentionally with lines is so important when shooting interiors. You have to make sure that those vertical lines and those horizontal lines are meeting up parallel with your vertical edges of your frame and the horizontal edges of your frame. It's going to separate your work from looking super amateur to very professional. Now you don't always have to be on a tripod, so if there are any detail shots like close-up stuff that you want to get, go ahead and pop your camera off of the tripod, throw on something tighter like a 50mm, and start getting detail shots that way as well. No harm, no foul in that. It's really important to have even light on the scenes when you're shooting indoors. You might not think it's important because you can fix it in post, but if you're dealing with a high batch of photos, you're doing these consistently a lot of the time, it's gonna be really annoying if you're constantly dealing with uneven light. So sometimes that means just closing shades and raising your ISO or lengthening your shutter speed. If there's a really dark bathroom that doesn't get a lot of natural light, maybe you just leave your shutter open for a super long time and expose it to make it look like daylight. I'm winded from fluffing pillows. You can also shoot bracketed HDR photos, which is taking 3 images on your camera, one overexposed, one exposed correctly, and one underexposed. And when you do that, you can merge them all together in post so that if there's a discrepancy in the shadows and the highlights in a room in uneven light, you can combat that with the HDR photo and edit that HDR photo in post. So it's more even. And I'll show you that towards the end in the post-process part. So I'm gonna go back to fluffing pillows now. Don't forget to style your scene. Sometimes it's really easy to just photograph the way it is, but if you're really intentional about getting stuff like florals or home goods, knickknacks here and there, things that you find around the house that are beautiful, sometimes it makes a ton of sense to just throw those things into a scene. Now, if they don't make any sense, obviously you shouldn't put them in there. If you're photographing something in the bedroom, maybe you want to use glasses and a book and not like a blender. There's a lot of greenery that really enhances scenes. I think greenery really pops on this kind of palette. Eucalyptus, white roses, very simple stuff. Clear glass, other knickknacks that fit with this color basket. This color palette, coffee is a great thing, coffee beans. I can really make a photo jump from so-so to really popping and really adding depth and texture to the image. Truth is, sometimes the props and stuff in your scene look different in camera, so sometimes you have to make little micro adjustments to your shots so that they look right in camera, and they might look a little wonky or weird in real life, but it's all about the shot, so you have to make those micro adjustments to make it look perfect in the shot, in camera. All right, now that we've shot everything to the best of our ability in camera, we're gonna go ahead and bring all the photos into Lightroom on our computer and do post-production. Make those photos look super crisp and fancy. All right, let's go to the studio. Hey guys, welcome to the studio. We're going into Lightroom now. I chose 4 photos to edit with you guys so you could see the post-process, what that looks like. And thank you for dealing with my sweats at the condo. And just, I'm in my Canadian tuxedo now, so I hope that's hipster enough for you. Let's get into the photos. It's so hot under these lights. It's worth it. It's worth it for the tube. Can I start calling it that? Can I start calling it the tube? So this is Lightroom. What I'd like to do is show you how to edit the bracketed photos as HDR. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna highlight these 3. They're the bracketed photos I took in camera, one underexposed, one exposed correctly, and then one overexposed, to compensate for the shadows and the highlights that were lost with a not evenly lit room. So I'm gonna right click after I've highlighted the 3, and then I'm gonna go to Photo Merge and HDR. So I do that and it renders a preview for me, so we're just gonna wait for it to render the preview. Awesome. This is looking pretty good. It looks pretty even now, so I'm gonna go ahead and merge them. Looks great, auto align, auto settings, all that good stuff. Okay, so now we're gonna merge them, and this is also going to take a little bit of time, so you wait for that to render, get through. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to it, and now we have off to the right, we have our new HDR photo comprised of those 3. So yeah, you can see it's a lot more even now. There's a lot more information in the highlights and the shadows. So yeah, I'm gonna go back to library mode, and I'm gonna do my batch editing that I normally do over all photos. I'm gonna highlight the 4 that I want to edit, which are the last 4 here. And I'm gonna go over to my saved presets, and I'm gonna go over to my version of Cascade presets that I like. Cascade is what I use pretty much across the board by Ben Heish. He's a wedding photographer based out of Seattle. So I'm gonna apply that preset to all the photos. So it goes ahead and does that. And then I'm gonna increase my thumbnail size a little bit to kind of tweak this in library mode. So I'm gonna go to my HDR photo. It's looking a little too bright, so I'm gonna bring the exposure down. Just kind of getting it in the level and the area that I want in each photo. That one doesn't look too bad. Maybe raise the shadows a little bit. This one's a little crazy. Super blue, so warm it up. Bring the exposure down. Maybe add a little magenta. Cool, that's more in the range that I'd want. And the kitchen one looks a little blue. A little underexposed. So yeah, maybe somewhere in there. It's a little crooked. A little contrast. That's cool. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the HDR photo that I merged, I showed you already. And I'm going to, first of all, now I did shoot this on the tripod to get lines really good. They're still not perfect, so I'm actually gonna go down. If I scroll down on the right here, and I'm in develop mode, I'm gonna hit auto on transform to see what that does. So you can see it actually straightened out my lines pretty well. Now it feels like the image is more balanced, the lines are vertical and parallel to the edges of the frame. I think it could use a little bit more tweaking, so I'm gonna rotate it a tiny bit. Now I feel like the highlights are still a little too bright, so I'm gonna go over to the highlight tab, rock that down a bit, and maybe the shadows up a tiny bit more. Add a little bit of contrast, and I'm gonna desaturate it just a tad because that green is kind of distracting. Really, when you shoot these HDR photos, it balances the light really, really well. So there's not much I have to do this image. I have a good preset to put on it, make small little adjustments in the develop mode, and we're good to go. So there's not much to be said there, but there will be more extensive editing in the next few. Going to the second one, now I have a bit more darkness in the shadows here. But we have all these elements working together. It's one of my favorite photos from the set. Some of the things I noticed right away are I want to make sure my lines are perfect. Again, I shot this on the tripod, so it's as close as I can to get those lines right in camera, but I'm gonna go back down to the transform tool and hit auto to straighten that out a bit. Still feels like the door on the left side is leaning back a bit, so I'm gonna go to the vertical panel here and mess with it a tad to make that line parallel to the edge. And now I'm looking pretty good here.
Just crop it in a tad. Cool. So I'm going to keep this image at 2:3 because I can crop it later for Instagram or wherever I want to put it. But as I said earlier, all my lines are good now. They're parallel. Even the rug across the bottom is running parallel to the bottom line of the frame. So I'm going to go ahead and boost the shadows to get more information in those dark spots and decrease that saturation just a tad to get that color where I want it again. Again, this is feeling pretty close to where I'm going to move it back over a tad to the right to get some of that dresser back in there. You can still get the handle on the door. Nice. So we have all these working elements in the frame. I like the eucalyptus up to the right. That was placed intentionally when I shot this photo because I felt like it was just lacking some depth in that area. It felt like too much negative space. So I positioned it just in the right way to do that. That's pretty much all I want to do with this photo. Again, super simple, the power of shooting right in camera with that tripod. Now, if we go to the ones where I was shooting handheld, these next two I was shooting handheld, you can see some of the discrepancies. You can see that the lines aren't perfect and that I need to do different things to it. So, just like the other ones, I'm going to go down to transform and I'm going to do the auto transform and see what that does. It's not flawless. Really what I'm looking at is this line over to the right. I want to make sure that line is parallel to the edge of my frame on the right side. So I'm going to rock that so it is parallel. Boom, that was my first step. Great. Now on this one, an HDR photo would have been great as well, but I was really pushed back into the back of the room and I didn't have any room to place the tripod. So I just had to shoot this handheld and deal with it in post. I couldn't do the bracketed HDR photo. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to use these graduated filters. So if you, in develop mode, go up to the top right over here, if there's a section of your photo that's too bright, you can drag that graduated filter over that section. And it's just on my soften skin mode, which I don't want right now. But I'm going to decrease the exposure. Oops, yeah, there we go. I'm going to decrease the exposure so that it balances the photo out more. So really, it's looking like the same exposure across the board. And I'm actually going to pull another graduated filter from the right over in the shadows. And again, I'm going to change the exposure. This time it's going to go up so that balances out the photo this way. So now I have two graduated filters that are working together to balance out the light in the photo. And I'm going to raise the exposure just in general as well to get it kind of up to speed where I want it. Now, I'm not really stoked about the color in this image right now, so I'm going to drag this white balance stripper over to the white section, see what that does. It's way too warm, so I'm going to dial that way back and kind of get it in a place where I feel is more realistic, which is like right around here. Yeah, awesome. Another thing I could do is I'm starting to see like an orange tint on the wall, the black wall, and I don't necessarily want that. So I can actually pull another graduated filter over that section. And what I'll do is I can decrease the exposure a bit, but I'm also going to just desaturate that whole section because now it's just going to get rid of that orange tint and it's going to leave it black. Plus I can add some contrast to deepen the black in the photo, as well as bringing the blacks down a bit over here. So now it's looking desaturated a little bit more. It's looking much more like black on the wall instead of that orange tint, and it's bringing like the natural real color of that wall to life. So I'm just gonna decrease the blacks on the slider right here to give more contrast to the image as well, and raise the shadows to get some more details in those spots that are lost, like in the plant and the little side table. Now we're looking pretty good. So if you go, I'm just hitting the backslash bar above my return key or my enter key, and that shows me my before and after. Sweet. Sometimes when you look at the before and after, you're like, that color is not so good. So looked a little too magenta to me, so then I just bring it in the greens a little bit more. Yeah, now it's looking pretty healthy. Awesome. Sweet. All right, I'm gonna move on to the last one now. So this last one, like I said, it's handheld in my kitchen, and there's a bunch of things wrong with this photo. I hope that you can see how much drastically changes in the develop panel here to get exactly where I want to be for this photo. So first thing I'm going to do again is I'm going to transform. I'm going to go ahead and get those lines straight. That did it. I really don't think there's much else. I might go to the vertical panel and mess with it a little bit more, but I think it's pretty much balanced out. Rotate it a tad. Just looking at those lines up in the top left cabinet and the island as well. So things that I noticed right away that are annoying to me, especially because I know, and it's my kitchen, we don't have trim on the bottom left cabinet over here. So what I do here is I just take my clone stamp, which the shortcut is just Q on your keyboard, and I'm going to clone out that whole section of old cabinet. So I just drag that across, and it's going to go up right above it. And it's on the heal mode right now, but I want it on the clone mode. So boom, just cloned it. Awesome. And I get really nitpicky with specific clones. But yeah, so there's really no way of telling that that's not the line that used to be there. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave it. And if you zoom out, there's literally no way you can tell that there's any discrepancy there. If there's a line that shows from that clone stamp, you could literally just run another clone stamp line above that edge and change it to the heal tool. Bring it over to the black section of the cabinet, and that's gonna solve that problem of blending that clone stamp. There's also another section over here with chip paint where the trim is gonna go eventually, so I'm gonna go ahead and just clone stamp that as well. So we got those out of the way. Awesome, our lines are clean. The image is looking good. There's still a couple other things, like this vent is starting to pop up over here, so I'm gonna go ahead and clone stamp that out as well. And this one I can just use heal. So I'm gonna drag it up to the white, and actually heal mode isn't doing the job here. So I'm gonna go ahead and clone it. And you can tell, like I said earlier, this white piece does not blend well. So I'm literally just gonna run another clone stamp over the whole section. And this time I'm gonna use the heal version to blend it better. Perfect. So now there's really no way you can tell it was there. Gone. And there's this little electrical box up here as well that I want to clone stamp out. All right, this is looking really awesome now. What's great is, okay, so I closed the shades here to get a more even balanced look on the kitchen. I love the palette, I love the way it looks. I might even want to desaturate it a little bit more to emphasize that palette and darken the blacks a little bit more to emphasize the color on the cabinets. Now you can see some some coloring that's weird on the cabinet here because of the light that's coming in or the tile. And really what I'm seeing here, I'm gonna rotate that a tiny bit. What I'm seeing here is kind of like a blue tint. So I can either desaturate this because this color palette is really kind of 3 or 4 colors. So I could desaturate the whole thing and bring up the oranges like back in the stool, like such. That's one way to do it. But I could also go into the HSL panels and I can desaturate that blue color or that tint over here as well. Since the color palette is so monochromatic and there's only like 1 or 2 colors that are popping outside of black, white, and gray, I'm just gonna bring up that orange. So what I did was I took this little dial next to saturation on the HSL sliders in the develop panel here, and I dragged that over to the color that I want to saturate more. And that might be a little too much for me, so I'm rock that back down. Yeah. And I'm starting to notice that top shelf isn't really running as vertical or as horizontal as I want to the edge. So I'm gonna go ahead to the horizontal section and I'm gonna even that out just a little bit. Cool. All right, that's looking awesome. Sweet, so I hope that gave you some insight as to what I do in the post-process. I know it's not extremely extensive, but you can at least see like what I do here and there to put the final touches on these images. What I said at the beginning is like it's really helpful if you shoot with that tripod. If you're trying to get this stuff right in camera first, that's what's gonna help you so much in the post-processing for these photos. Now, minimal editing is always what's gonna be best. That's why I love Cascade presets. That's why I love presets like Visco Film. Presets that are just not going to be distracting from what's actually true of the environment, true of the interior. And that's really helpful for this situation here with Cascade. The balance of the colors is neutral and it really accentuates like the real tone of what the colors are. I hope this video was helpful for you, and if you liked it, go ahead and give it a like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. That'll help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Instagram, where's a good place? Maybe right here. Go check it out. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Go ahead and turn on that notification bell if you want to be notified of the next time I post a video and I wear sweats and make dad jokes. Zarek Floberg signing off. Don't forget to lean into what makes you different. Peace! That probably spiked my microphone. I'm gonna go ahead and whisper then. Just go, peace. All right, bye. I always think this section is gonna be like 5 minutes and it ends up, I've recorded for 20 minutes. F!